Well, hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. Betty, we are still in Switzerland, but we're going to some exciting places today, right?
Yes, we certainly are. As if we look at what we're looking at right now, we'd say it would seem to be.
It would seem to be. All right. You make a lot of toothpicks or matches from that. Anyway, we always wanted to show a little bit of the native, produce. And the produce there happen to be trees.
The trees, that's right.
Yeah, right.
And
Isn't
they've had
gorgeous?
some difficult time with the trees there, especially in the Black Forest area.
You know, that's true.
Yeah, there was that acid rain that was coming down and really destroyed a lot of the trees. But there are still plenty left.
Right. And, you know, in the eastern or the western part there, they had those great big winds, too, and that destroyed some of the trees. Anyway, we are on our way to Vaduz. And you say, to
How
where?
do you like that name,
To
huh?
Vaduz. I love that name. I think it's great. Vaduz, of course, is in Liechtenstein, and that's where we're going to wind up after a bit. And on the way that we are traveling today, we pass several castles, of course, a couple of them that you've just seen. Now, and these are probably, you know, ruins of castles. I mean, I don't think anybody is living there right at the moment. However, I think it would be kind of fun to take one of those and redo it over and maybe.
Well, you've got any money?
Something. No, it'd take
then
too much
forget
money.
it.
Yeah.
Forget
hey,
it.
we've crossed the river, so that means now we are in Liechtenstein or Stein, whichever way you prefer to pronounce it, and we are now looking at the castle of the Prince of Liechtenstein Liechtenstein. I keep saying that. Our guide kept saying Liechtenstein. I always call it Liechtenstein.
I think
before.
I'm comfortable with Liechtenstein too.
You are?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Well, this is the castle of the prince, and you know, the prince has a daughter and also has a son, and the reigning prince is Prince Hans Adam II of Liechtenstein. And the hereditary prince worked from 1993 to 1996 at a London auditing company to gain business practice after the completion of his studies. And he currently lives in Vaduz with his spouse, Her Royal Highness, the hereditary Princess Sophia of Liechtenstein. She was the Duchess in Bavaria. And they have a son, Prince Joseph Winsel Maximilian Maria, who was born on the 24th of May in 1995. And their daughter, Princess Maria Caroline, was born the 17th of October, 1996.
Well, that's very interesting information, Marv.
Thank
but
you.
I think the history is much more interesting than the present. Because, you know, you'd wonder, how in the world do you have a little principality amongst all of the nations like they do that? And it's a historical thing. And this Prince Johann Adam, he purchased that county of Vaduz, and because he became the owner then of the county, he became the owner of the castle. And that castle was a barracks, a prison, a restaurant, and a seat of administration. I mean, it was all sorts of things. And then the reigning prince, Prince Franz Joseph, was the first prince to take permanent residence in 1938. Now,
that was the grandfather, or that was the father.
The
of
father,
the prince,
yeah.
of the prince
But
now.
in 1938, because Austria had been annexed by the Nazis,
That's
so
right,
he had
that's
to move out, and so and it just continued on from then. But I just think how you wonder how anybody could get a principality, but he had to buy a seat in order to a seat in, what do they call that?
I think the Council of Princes.
The councils,
or something,
and so because he was able to do that, then it became the imperial principality and acknowledgement then of the services of this guy. I mean, there's a whole
That's
bunch
great.
of background, but it gives just a little bit to know that, to think that beautiful thing and where it's so flourishing now was once a prison, a restaurant, whatever.
Well, no, that's
Okay,
great.
that
And of course,
okay?
that's okay.
All
Now we
right,
have.
thank you.
As you were giving us that history, we crossed the border into Austria.
Well, that's okay.
And but you see, it borders Liechtenstein borders Austria and borders or Switzerland. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's but it's kind of right.
Yeah, and you don't dare blink.
No,
If
because
you're not
crossed
stopping, you don't
borders.
blink because you're out of there.
Anyway, the beautiful area now here in Austria is just great. Those waterfalls are so pretty. This whole area is so beautiful. People often ask me, what is your favorite place to go to? Where do you like to travel? I say, well, I like Bavaria, and which I would consider, you know, part of this being what maybe it isn't, because Bavaria, I guess we always think of Germany, but you look, as you say, you blink and you've crossed the border. So I would consider this still part of my favorite area. Betty, this area here that we're going through is very, very famous ski area. I shouldn't say area, areas, right?
My kids 1 year went off to Europe, and they did skiing in St. Anton and Kitzbühel. And they didn't have much money, but they had a wonderful time. Susie was just out of high school, and in order to be able to ski, they would get up really early in the mornings, and they would do the packing of the snow for the skiers, and that way they got a pass to ski all day.
That's great. And listen, when you get a pass to ski all day here, the wonderful thing is that you can ski you can ski all day long and not repeat yourself. You can go from one area to the next area, to the next area, to the next area, so you can ski all day long, and then you catch those little buses that they have there too. Of course, we're not there during the ski season, although there is snow way up on top of the Alps, as you can see right here. But if it were wintertime, when we would have been there, then we would have seen lots and lots of snow. And that's the reason that you're seeing here that this highway is going under an area that is protected, because, Betty, there was a whole village that was wiped out a few years ago by an avalanche. And this is very, very dangerous. I mean, even today, you would think, well, yeah, they can control those things, but not so much so, because I think it was just 2 years ago, I think, that an avalanche came through and flattened one of these villages.
God is a mighty powerful God.
Yes,
regardless of what precautions. If that's what's going to be, it's going to be.
It's going to be, right. So, and look, there you have beautiful flowers in the meadows, and up there on the high peaks, you have the snow.
It truly is scenic.
Don't you keep thinking, isn't this where Grandfather and Heidi were? Well, they were in Switzerland.
No,
but
that's
Austria,
all right. It's all. But Marvin, if you didn't know that, if we didn't identify where we were and what areas, it could be just about any place.
That's true. That's true.
Any
place in the Alps.
Yeah.
Well, you could say the same thing for the Italian Alps, the Swiss Alps, the Austrian Alps. I mean, it's magnificent. The other thing is, sometime I want to get a picture. Last time we were there, and when we flew out early in the morning, we flew out actually from Italy on one of the trips that we took, and we flew over the Alps, and I kick myself now for not having a camera, because as you fly over this, you see it is so absolutely incredible from a bird's eye view way up above to look, and you see these little valleys and lots of little lakes that are all around the place, and these beautiful, beautiful mountain peaks there, of course, which are the Alps. It's incredible.
And you see so many glaciers and the fissures caused from the glaciers, of course, and that's where the waterfalls come down from. But I don't think you could have done very good out of an airplane. Don't feel bad.
I'm going to try this next time.
Don't feel badly.
I'm going to try this next time.
But Marv, you're going to have the reflection, and then what?
I'll have them open the window.
But you can't. I was going to say you can't stick your head out the window.
I'll have them open the window.
Well, it really does. If you try it, it's okay, because if it doesn't take, nobody's going to know except you.
I know. Oh, these onion dome churches that we see through Austria and in Germany as well are very, very interesting. Of course, every little village that we went through, I really wanted to have the camera rolling, because you could just see that. Now we're in Germany. Boy, talk about don't blink.
Fairy tale.
Yeah.
Look at that, huh?
We're going to visit this magnificent castle. There are two castles that are here, and Neuschwanstein, the fairy book castle, is the one that we're going to visit. And this we have always just taken pictures of from afar, but this was the first time that we actually had an opportunity to go up and go inside the castle. Now, you think, okay, well, you just go on up and go. Well, you don't do it just that way. We were very fortunate in that there were not a lot of people the day that we were going, and some of the people were going to go up the road, because we still have quite a ways to go. Some were going by horse cart, as you can see here, and others were going to go in a little tram, which we did. And so this is Ludwig's castle at Neuschwanstein, and Betty, I know you know a lot about this castle and about good King Ludwig II, or crazy mad King Ludwig II, right?
Well, I think everybody knows about him. He was nuttier than a fruitcake. He was. I mean, the things he did. He
yeah,
built.
But the things one of the good things he did, he built these castles here. I mean, this is another one here, just down the road from the one that we're going to go up and see. And well, look, his father and his mother were, in fact, his mother was like his second or his first cousin, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And he also had a brother, Otto, that was born after he was born. And his brother, Otto, they put him in a crazy asylum.
Yeah, well, it really did run in the family. And he had well, they did a report on him trying to get him out, you know. And they think that that's probably why they don't even know if it was that he committed suicide. But that seems to be the whole thing.
Well, you know, what had happened, to put it in perspective, that he was spending an awful lot of money on all of these castles, and there's another one that we're going to visit in one of the other shows. But he spent a lot of his own money, and then he was out looking to go and find some loans. He needed something like another $20 million or something, and he had plans on the drawing board to build a Chinese castle.
Oh gosh, that was something else.
That something?
Did you have the description of that castle that he was going to build, the Chinese one?
Yeah, and I mean it was absolutely incredible. But you know, there's a picture of him right here, as you can see, and they say that he was crazy. Sometimes I think he was maybe crazy like a fox. He had a designer design this particular castle here. He was very much in awe of Wagner, the composer Wagner. And these beautiful lakes that you can see here out from the castle windows, or in the area where the castle is, just give you such a picture postcard look of this area. I mean, it's I don't know. You just can't take a bad picture there. Anyway, but Ludwig, they thought that he was crazy. They told him he was crazy. He was about to remove all of his counselors and all of his ministers, and they got wind of it. And so one of the theories is that they had done the king in.
Yeah,
you know?
that he himself did it. Though I think the final conclusion was that he committed suicide.
That's what a lot of
There's
people say.
There's argument, huh?
But it is an argument, because you could make up your own mind. Now this is inside of this is inside of his bedroom, by the way, and I want to thank one of our networks for providing us with these pictures, because they would not let us take pictures inside. But if you will notice inside the castle, the paintings that are in there are mainly from Wagner's operas, Tannhauser and
Lohengrin,
which was you know, it's just marvelous. I mean, the work that you see in here. However, in this bridge that we cross over, which is right by the castle, you look down there, and he would have picnics there in the snow and tell everybody, "Oh well, we're having beautiful sunshine here, and we're on the beach."
Oh, well, that was part of his madness.
Right.
Actually, he truly was mad.
Well, his doctor and he both were found drowned in one of these lakes, and they set out about 6:10 in the morning, and both were wearing overcoats and had umbrellas as a storm was threatening, and they passed from the castle's view about 6:25 p.m. I'm sorry, they left at 6:10 p.m. But before parting, his doctor, who was treating him, Dr. Gooden, had given orders that they were going to have dinner, and it was going to be ready at 8 o'clock at night. Well, 8 o'clock came, and Ludwig and the 62-year-old doctor had not returned. And they thought, well, maybe it was raining, so maybe they went in from the rain and just took cover somewhere. So then a policeman went out to look for him. And then two more people went out to look for him. And still at 9 o'clock, there wasn't any news of them. Well, one of his servants began to panic, and it wasn't like the doctor to stay out this late, especially on a dark and rainy night. That sounds like a good story, doesn't it? On a dark and rainy night. Anyway,
adds to the mystery of the whole thing.
It really did. It was a really dark night, and they had lamps and torches, and they went out and they looked all over the place until 10 o'clock. Someone noticed that there was a dark object in the water close to the path by the shore.
And guess what?
They discovered the king's jacket and his overcoat about a half an hour later. And on June 13th, 1886, the body of King Ludwig II was found floating face down in the shallow.
How was he? I like that face down better.
Face down in the shallow water, and about 20 meters from the lake's bank. And then Dr. Gooden's body was found a few minutes later, floating near King Ludwig.
Yeah,
his clock stopped. His watch, rather, had stopped at 6:54.
So did his heart.
54. Yeah, how about that? Anyway, but they say he frequently forgot to wind his watch anyway, so could have stopped at another time. Who knows?
Well, we're kind of making fun of this or making light of it, but for his death really sent shockwaves all across Europe and the world, kind of like when Princess Diana died recently, and that's truly the way it affected Europe, and from his death. Well, he lay in state in Munich there for a week in a huge funeral, and he's buried in the royal vault underneath St. Michael's Church in Munich. But after his death, a cult sprang up among the young people of the Alps, and they had shrines to him in their homes and postcards and the whole thing. So even today, that cult flourishes. And look at us. We were part of it. We went through the castle. Sure. We absorbed some of this stories.
Well, and that's the whole thing. I mean, he's now becoming sort of a folklore legend, yeah. In fact, while we were there, I noticed that there was, while we were waiting to take the little tram up to the castle, and here you can see that this was a ballroom that we're looking at right now, and while we were waiting down there, I noticed that there was a poster, and it was in German, so I couldn't really make too much of it, but I went inside this little place and I asked the lady, I said, what is it? She says, well, we have a CD. They've just come out with a musical play called Ludwig II. And I said, really? And she said, yes. And I said, well, do you have the music for it? And she says, well, there's a cassette, right? Not a cassette, but a CD. Yeah. And I said, may I purchase this? She says, yes, it's my last one. I said, really? And she said, yeah. She said, you could probably order some more, but who's going to stick around? We were leaving. We were going on to Oberammergau. Anyway, I got the music.
Did you buy it? Why didn't we play it?
Today?
Yeah.
Because I left it at home. I'm sorry. It's really great.
Oh, I'm so glad you bought it, and I'm so glad it's great. And and
you're so glad I left it at home, right?
My goodness.
Anyway, what I have to tell you about is that on April 2000 is when the play opened, and it opened. We just took a look at one of the lakes just a little bit ago, but they built a new playhouse down there by the lake, and we talked to somebody while we were on this trip who had seen the musical, and they said it was really fantastic. So it's something that we can probably be looking forward to seeing maybe one of these days if it comes to the United States.
Oh, well, that would be interesting now, especially if you've been there yourself to see it. But they use that castle for all kinds of movie sets and special effects for films, travel posters, books.
Oh, yeah.
So they're making lots of bucks off that.
But you know
Mad King.
You know who this castle inspired?
Tell me.
Walt Disney.
Really?
Yes, and that's why you see in Disneyland and at Disney World, you're going to see sort of a replica. I mean, it was he built those castles based on what this one looked like.
Of course, because when we see these fantastic places in Europe, we do say to ourselves, "Oh, there's Disneyland." Or
yeah. And again, this castle is not that old, but I mean, as castles in Europe come and go, but it still is very spectacular. And boy, he picked the right place to build this thing. I mean, the view from the castle, looking in any direction, or if you're down below looking up at the castle, I don't know.
Marv,
somebody was a genius in putting it together.
Marv, what makes a castle a castle? What does it have to be a castle?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well,
I know. You got to have a king.
Oh,
don't you?
No, your prince lives in it now.
Not that one.
Well, no, but I just meant castles. I don't really know, and I was just curious.
That's a good question.
Because I have an idea. Probably wealthy merchants built castles. And is the castle just a description of the type of the building, or?
Well, most of them were built as fortifications.
Yes, that's right.
And in fact, in some of the other castles that we see in Europe, we know that when the invaders were coming to invade the thing, all of the little townspeople or the people that were working out on the fields, and that lived out in that area, and they would come in the castle and they would be protected by the landowner, I suspect.
Yeah, we have that great book on castles, so maybe someday we can put some of it on television describing how the bricks go into place. And to me it was really a child's book, a Newbery Award. Yeah,
Newbery Caldecott.
Caldecott. And but I often go to the children's section for trips.
Is there any particular reason?
Yeah,
Betty, that
for
you
the
go to
mentality of me.
children's
No, it's so succinct. You can get
Right.
a whole lot of information without being boggled down with dates and
Right.
And I find it. I tell my people, go to the library, but go into the children's section,
And
and
then
then
you'll
if you
find
find something interesting and want to go into more depth, then do it.
Good. Okay, well, we'll have to explore that sometime. Again, these are shots of the inside of the inside of this castle. They only let you see about 11 rooms in this castle. Now, you would say, "My goodness sakes, the castle looks so big. Why only 11 rooms?" Well, I have a hunch that maybe only 11 rooms are worth really taking a look at. There we see that swan. That's why we wanted this picture, the porcelain swan that you see in the picture there, and also here. Ludwig, as a young boy, was very, very impressed with swans, and as a young lad, he saw his first opera, and of course, naturally, the theme was swans, and so he did.
That's beautiful.
That's one of the paintings there inside the castle. So and he had swans just everywhere, but he saw them swimming in the lakes, and his mother used to take him on hikes, through the Alps, and of course, and you also see it's through all over Europe in the rivers and in the lakes and things. You see swans everywhere.
Is that where that expression came from? Well, I swan. Do you think? Maybe?
I'm not going to touch that one. I don't know.
Okay.
It may be, but again, the paintings inside here are taken from some of the operas, and there we see the swan, and that is just absolutely beautiful. Well, so much for the castle. We're going to go on down the road, and we stop at one of Betty's favorite places, Wieskirk. Out in the
boonies.
In the boonies, yeah, really. Now, what had happened here at this church, the first time we saw it about 10 years ago or so, there was scaffolding inside, and we couldn't really see all of the painting and everything. But today, you see people coming out in costume. There had been an ecumenical service. In fact, the ecumenical services were going on all over Germany at the time that we happened to be there. And they were having a big concert here, and the concert had just finished maybe a half an hour before we got there. And so we were able to see a lot of the people coming out of the church, and a lot of them had, the native costumes on. But look
wonderful.
at the inside.
It was such a great experience. And remember, nobody wanted to go because they were tired.
Yeah.
I said, well, we're going. And it was so enjoyable, so worthwhile.
That's why I say one of Betty's favorite places there. But as you see, in the area that we're going to be in Bavaria, and as we have seen in just recently in the shows here, we can see that these churches are either a white or a pastel inside, and then the decoration that you see, whether it be wood carving or whether it be out of stone or I was going to say plaster of Paris, but I'm sure that's not plaster of Paris by any means. But it is incredible, just incredible.
Does it remind you just a little bit, except it's so much more ornate, of the church that we saw in Lucerne, the Jesuit church? Or is it just a white? It has the paintings, but on a much simpler motif,
Well,
design.
I think now they may have been built at the same time or around the same time. I'm not quite sure, but you notice the one thing in these churches that the ceilings are painted. And I mean, you sit back there and you really have to look, straight up to take a look at the ceilings. But the beautiful artwork that's done not only on the altars that you see here, but on the ceilings as well. And take a look at this organ, Betty. Look at that. It's just, and I mean, this is the back of the church.
This is
right. Look at it.
I'm sorry they had the scaffolding when we were there the first time, but we got a greater appreciation of it because we didn't get to see it in completion.
Yeah, I remember the first time when we did go to take a look at that. Why in the world are we stopping here? But now, 10 years later, I'm glad that we had the opportunity.
Aren't they darling?
To do it.
Yeah. It was so impressive. Our hearts were just right. They just raised all of our spirits because we were all pooped, and it was nice.
Right, and we were heading on down the road, not very far, to get to Oberammergau, and here we are now in the village of Oberammergau. And of course, most of you are familiar with the Passion Play, which is presented every 10 years in this little village of Oberammergau. And on our next show, we're going to give you more of an explanation about the Passion Play, show you more of this village, which I think is probably one of the prettiest places in Germany. It's absolutely gorgeous. And here's the church. Now, you think for a little village church, well, okay, a little tiny village church. Wait till you get in the inside of this church. It's very similar to what we just saw at the Wieskirk just a moment ago. But this is what surprises me, Betty, because you're in town and you have the house and the barn right next to one another. And you're in town. You know, it's not that the barn is located, a half a mile outside of town, but right inside. And of course, this is the thing that we're always so impressed with, is how the buildings are painted here. And I want to show as much as I possibly can. So we're going to do that a little bit more in the next show. But it's beautiful. And the thing is that these, I don't know if they touch this up every now and then or if they have to. But
they must. Well, because
beautiful.
You see, it was raining part of the time we were there. And with the rain, it does wash off a lot of the soil that might be on the buildings themselves. But in any place that you go every so many years, especially being this white like this, they would have to do not upgrade. Do you call it upgrade when you do some painting?
You probably just maybe touch it up a little bit. I don't know, but I couldn't tell because it looked just as bright as it did 10 years ago when we were there. And you're right too. I mean, you're going to have snow and ice and that type of stuff too during the wintertime. In fact, right at the edge of the village, which I believe is on the western edge, you can just walk right over to a ski area as well.
But look, these are outside. The statues, everything is outside. It's just. Well, you can see for yourselves. We don't have to keep on talking about it because it's just there to see and enjoy.
Should tell you, though, and remind you that Oberammergau is noted for its wood carvers. And the beautiful things that they do are really magnificent. I mean, small statuary, big statuary, all types of things. A lot of religious art, of course, comes out of here. As you can see right here, I'm just shooting through a window there in one of the stores, But look at this. I mean, it just, and all types. I mean, it's quite impressive. The flag, or the little blue diamonds, the blue and white diamonds that you see there, and you'll see that on some of the flags and some of the wrapping paper, whatever, denotes that this is Bavaria. That's the Bavarian flag, has the blue and the white diamonds. Now here is the churchyard, and originally the Passion Play, when it was first started, was held here in the churchyard or the graveyard. And of course now it's gotten to be a much bigger place, and we'll tell you more about that in our next episode on the Adventures Travel Club. But it's almost time for us to go. So Betty, please give everybody your phone number, so in case they want to find out about our upcoming trips, they can give you a call.
I'm at 488-7443. I'd love hearing from you.
That's about all the time that we have right now. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.